Yeah, I should record now. Yeah, okay. So I'm saying here about comparative and world. I'm saying world really means very important, valuable text. Again, we say here, or this section really briefly, if you like, mentions this, to say that mostly, in a way, mostly they say here, Western texts are world texts. Well, we may not agree to this. You know, we may not accept that. And I think we are right not to accept it because, you know, we may not fully accept, for example, some texts. We think this is really not nice or we don't like it. It's up to us. So the idea that in the study of comparative, you compare and contrast any text, not necessarily world text, not necessarily important text, you can compare any text. So this is what we mean by comparative. Whereas world means really heavy, valuable, good, lovely, etc., etc., insightful, full of ideas, full of humanity, full of, you know, values and so on. Really, this is the idea. Again, some people may say, you know, strongly, they say only British or German or American texts have this. Well, that's not true. We are saying that any text which has this quality can be called world literature. Really, that's the whole idea, okay? And again, to talk about the next section is the market and how texts became really worldly because of the market. Because, you know, for example, you know, if you are lucky, you know, for example, I will give you a very good example. You know, this called the Lord of the Ring, and this, you know, this, what's that? Harry Potter, you know Harry Potter?
Yes.
Yes.
You know,
Sure.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure you people, you know, this young generation, they think you know, these texts, for example, are amazing, lovely, beautiful, etc. texts. But to me, they are not world literature. But you see, because, but the market, because they sell a lot, but you see, sometimes rubbish books sell a lot. Rubbish books sell a lot because this is it. Society, people like gossip, like to read sometimes, you know, stupid thing. I don't know why, but this is it. And I mean, it's not necessarily every, you know, marketable text. Every marketable text is a world text. That's not true. You know, this is the idea. Here to say that the market or the systematic reading or the materialist reading made a text worldly text, again, this is a fallacy. This is wrong, really a fallacy, meaning, well, people assume that if books are sold greatly, therefore they should be read as world texts. Well, that's the idea really here. Notice I highlighted here, we say, a world literature such as is inevitable with the ever-increasing facility of communication is to be formed in the near future. Again, here we're talking about Goethe using this idea. Again, you know, remember, as I said, Goethe was writing in Germany, and right at the middle of the, well, towards early beginnings of the 19th century. And here, because of the question of economy and industry and so on, And notice here, Marx and Engels were writing at the same time. Notice here, bourgeoisie, here of course a quotation from Marx and Engels. Notice, the bourgeoisie has, through its exploitation of the world market, given a cosmopolitan character to production and consumption in every country. And as in material, so also in intellectual production. The intellectual creations of individual nations become common property, and from the numerous national and local literatures, these arises a world literature. Well, really this idea Marx and Engels are saying very briefly, literature, what is written by anybody, is a social production, is the language. An Omani novel, for example, an Omani novel, because it's written by an Omani character, person, woman, man, right? It's talking about Omani society, Omani culture. Therefore, he is saying here, it's owned by everybody. And it's the ownership of everybody, the ownership of the nation. And therefore here, you know, he's saying, therefore it becomes what we call a world text, because it's owned by the whole of society. And that's why he said, of course, Engels and Marx, they are talking about really about socialism and Marxism and so on. So that's why here we say, notice the question of consumption and production, intaj and istihlak. And this is really the real idea. And that's why today we say consumer society, you know? And really this is to do with the question of, you know, social, you know, political, social attitudes, and so on. So really the idea I'm saying here is interesting later on about that. To say when literature becomes, because notice here, the intellectual creations of individual nations, notice individual nations, and he said nations, and he wants to say specific nations. Whatever is created by this specific nation become, he said, a common property, the property of everybody. Like what I said to you about you know, an Omani novel or Omani poem or whatever. And that's what he said. He said numerous national or local literatures. You know, notice here national and local, mahalli. And this is really the idea, you know, we are saying here. For Marx and Engels, this is important. And I think to some extent we understand that. Later on we shall see how this is done. So again, the next section, you know, talks about translation and, you know, translation, literary journals, travel and communications and so on. And I think, you know, these words here, these keywords and buzzwords are important to tell us about, you know, world literature. A world literature is a world literature because it's translated, because it travels beyond its borders. An Omani novel becomes a world text when it's translated to other languages, when it travels beyond Oman. And an Arab novel becomes international, becomes world literature when it's traveling, when it's translated, it can travel, it goes beyond the border. Really the idea, this is the idea. The role of translation. Again, you may say to me, well, who decides what to translate? Why do I translate this, not that? Yes, of course, that's true. You know, again, it depends on your mood, your attitude, and so on. So travel and communications and literary journals and you know, translations, all of this in a way help in creating what is called a world text. Okay, I think this is all here is what's mentioned, and I'm not worried about all this detail. You don't really need to worry about all this, because at the end of the day, it's not really very important for us here in this course. Again, notice here yeah.
Can we consider transferring the text or a literature to a movie or a film as one of the methods to transfer to make it a literature word?
Ryan speaking?
Yes.
Very good. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, today, yes. I mean, recently, well, maybe not just today, actually, I should say, even from 100 years back. Yes, not only translation in words, but as you say, yeah, to make it as a film or as a great film, yes, absolutely. It becomes a world text because you remember, many people go and read a novel because they have seen it as a film. Yes. Today, for example, you know, I hear in the last few years, everybody say al-Khimyai and al-Khimyai, you know, and I said, who's this Khimyai? You know, because again, you know, this is to do with this, again, you know, of the culture and translation, and again, I think I should say media, and I think you know, today with the global world and the globalization, I think, and again, as I say, really, it's in a sense media and propaganda. I can say really propaganda can make things like this. So the idea to say about pedagogy, which is in education here for us, what is to teach for us in examinations is important here, as you can see, about what is really for us is important as a fruitful thing, a good thing to teach. And I think this is again, a tricky thing and helpful to some at the same way. So world literature is used in so many ways through this question of education. And it really became part, a lot of the main courses in education, maybe departments in education, let's say, not just education, I mean as an education for teachers, I mean throughout universities, you know, in a way, that's the idea here we say about comparative and world literature. Again, this question about that, it's a long, as you can see, a long section. Again, really, I'm not really interested. I'm not interested in all this. Really, it does not help me a lot in that. But I will, you know, because here really it gives a lot of detail and a lot of examples. And for us, really, to be honest with you, really, we don't need all that, okay? So don't worry about it. Now, this section here, the question expanding, expanding means, as you know, to expand means to look at thing in a wider way. And I think here this section is, I highlighted some of this again to say what is, how world literature, if you like, went beyond Europe, if you like, or Western texts. Notice here I say it's obvious that there is too much literature in the world for an individual to read all of it. But the same point holds true for the literature of a single nation or in a single language, or selection is an inevitable part of our engagement with literature. Selection occurs in different settings, from the personal reading list to the curriculum of a course in world literature and the collection and the collected work of creation literary historians and anthologies and so on. You know, in a way, yeah, I mean, people sometimes, it depends. Like, for example, what I teach you here in this group is far different from the other groups. You know, I don't know, maybe that's not the reason you came to my group. But you see, I'm saying here is the way I selected things. You know, it depends on how I see things, okay? And the selection really is here, as you can see, the personal reading, you know, and sometimes the curriculum. Again, you know, the way we decided to give you this introduction because, you know, everybody in this teaching this course, the 3-4 of us, I think now we are 3 only because one group has disappeared, and that's why those people came to me, and you are welcome anyway. So the idea really here is selection. How to select? Again, it's really, nobody knows exactly. But you see, again, it depends on how you look at it. You know, sometimes they say, why do you teach this novel, for God's sake? There's nothing in it. Why do you teach this play? It's rubbish. You know? And I say this sometimes to my friends. Honestly, I say this to my colleagues and friends. I say, what do you teach in this novel? It's rubbish. There's nothing in it. It's not really good and not helpful and not healthy. Even it's not healthy. Well, people say, healthy? What do you mean? What do you mean? You know? So again, it depends how you see it. And really, this is the idea about what are, if you like, the criteria which make a world text. Notice, the idea of world literature also employs the need to expand national and comparative traditions and to take in more works, languages, and literatures. Well, this is the idea. Not only your own, but you have to look at other people, and I think that's true. Okay? However, the precondition for including more is to exclude others, as we are not able to add more hours to the day and more days to the year. Yes. The aspiration to expand the field of world literature thus involves around redrawing canons to reflect greater diversity and inclusivity, and very nice word, inclusivity. Inventing new uses for world literature and describing how collective and individual work in the field might be carried out. You see, this is the idea. The idea to say, how do we enlarge and expand? Yeah, you say, well, I think we should include some Arab, some Omani, some, you know, let's say Chinese, some African, some Persian, some Italian, some whatever. Yeah, you say, yeah, okay. So, but you see, the idea is that, how can you, you know, how can you include all this? Well, it's impossible. So that's why, yeah, we would like to include all those, but you see, you have to choose. you have to choose, you know, and I think this is true. If you like so many things at the same time and you are lost, you have to pick this or this or this or that, well, you have to choose, isn't it? I think you have to choose. I don't know if some of you, I taught this poem called Two Roads, or I don't know what's Two Roads Untaken or something.
The road not taken.
The
road not taken.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, one road not taken by this American. Yeah. So you have to take one road, and here you have to see which one to include, which text to take. I can't take everything. You see, that's why here I gave you, for example, another introduction. Here in my course, I gave you another introduction to world literature, because I said, well, this is really lovely, but I can't give you everything. So the idea really here is to say that a world text is something really always elastic, and if you like, you know, you can stretch it and you can really make it larger and larger, and that's why I'm saying elastic, and you know, you can really stretch it and then bring it back again. So that's why, you know, we say we have to expand it a little bit to include non-Western texts. Really, this is the idea. Notice, it will hardly do to do what Goethe did, to call for an expansion of the literary outlook and then leave it up to future generations to figure out how to do so. Well, yeah, sometimes, yes, we decide which one to include. Yeah, I think that's true. Sometimes, you know, there are texts which are seen as really very nice and we like them, and there are texts which are not good and we don't like them. So, you know, this is the idea. So again here, the next sentence here, it serves the same thing. Being part of the core canon of a large literature does not mean that one is part of the canon of world literature. Again, you know, the question here, we go back to say, what is the canon and what is not the canon? You know, again, means the canon is the mainstream, the main line, who decides whom and what is what, and so on. So notice here again, David Damrosch, you know, talks about this question. Another perspective on canons and world literature we find with David Damrosch, who proposes that we combine highly canonized works, that is world literature as in the old sense of the world's best and most universal literature, with lesser known works which show a filiation with the established canon. And I think, you know, even Damrosch, when he was here, I asked him myself about this actually, and he agreed with me. He said, yes, I mean, not everything can be seen as world text, and not necessarily, you know, every text is a world text. And he is saying, yes, I mean, yeah, we can have those texts from those really important, valuable texts, like, you know, I mean, for example, I can't understand that how people can graduate from university without studying, you know, to me, as an English graduate, without studying the main big names in the English novel, and the main big names in English poetry, and the main big names like Shakespeare and Milton and Hardy and Dickens and Jane Austen, and, you know, these people are classics in the English language. And for you, as, for example, as an English student, you know, this is the idea. Now, this is what he said, canonized, you know, to say, to take the old text, which are the good one from the real meaning of what's called maybe in the old days as world text, and those which are not, you know, from other texts, like you know, you can say, you know, an Arab novel or a Syrian novel or a Lebanese short story or a Chinese novel or an Indian novel or an Omani novel and so on. Because you say, yeah, this one has the same quality, has, notice you say, the same filiation, means a little bit closer to, and we like it because it's like us, and so on. So this is the idea. And I think this is true, and I think this is what we do here. Because my friends and the other colleagues that we are teaching this course, for example, they are not teaching the same novels like me. I mean, for example, I teach Crime and Punishment. I teach Camus, for example. I teach Lorca. I teach Dante. And I mean, these are absolutely world writers. And when I teach a world literature course, and it's really only fair to say, well, these are the world texts. And yeah, of course, there are other texts, Arab texts, Chinese texts, etc., etc. But I chose this one because I like them. Yeah, okay. People say, why do you like them? Well, I like them because, you know, and this is the idea. Again, there are reasons. Of course, you can learn a lot from those. You know, this is the idea. And really, this is the question we want to say here. And the next chapter you can see here in this is Goethe. Again, we'll go back to Goethe. Really here, he gives us his theory in a very funny way. And I will quickly, again, in the remaining time, summarize what he said. Really, as you can see, Goethe is here, this section is given to him. Again, I think you can read that quickly on your own. I think it's not difficult. Notice here, I highlighted this. Goethe had gained legendary fame with the publication of his Sorrows of Young Werner. Really, this is a novel. And I think it's translated to Arabic called Alam Werner. And I think, you know, is very interesting to some extent. This is a very sort of romantic novel. It's really to do with a romantic thing about, you know, German or European romanticism. Now, because of, you know, here you have a lot of details about Goethe. You read that, no problem. Really, it's not really important for us as for this course, but it gives us an idea about Goethe, really as a man and a great name in Western German, really world literature. But Goethe here gives us his own ideas about world literature in the second paragraph. Notice here. Broadly speaking, you can see my screen, correct? Yeah.
Yes, Doctor.
Yes, Doctor.
Yeah, Goethe, notice here, broadly speaking, Goethe at various times during the years in which he used the term seems to have associated the following, sometimes contradictory ideas with world literature. Most commonly, Goethe is assumed to have seen world literature as the circulation of ideas. Circulation. And I think this is what I said, you know, the exchange. That's what he said. We exchange ideas. We exchange themes. Notice the circulation of ideas, themes, and circulation, and forms between the literati of, in first instance, Europe and possibly beyond. Well, this is his original idea, to exchange ideas between European cultures, between European languages. And I think that's what he means here. And I think this is nice, and I think that's good. You know, he saw this circulation as spreading up because of economic and technical developments. You see, you know, circulation is useful in everything. Really is useful in everything. Like, you know, today we connect everything to economy and to gain and to profit and technical and things. And I think that's the idea. Even, believe it or not, many people today talk about Corona as to do with the economy. I don't know, really. We live in a crazy world today, isn't it? Notice, he saw this circulation as speeding up because of economic and technical developments, and particularly because of the rapid rise and spread of literary journals across Europe. This he saw as a positive development, knitting the peoples of Europe closer together, or at least promoting understanding and tolerance. Again, notice the word tolerance. And I like the word tolerance, and I think this is good. You know, I like you people here in this country. You are really, and I said this to you many times maybe before, and I will repeat it, and I repeat it all the time. You know, people here in Oman really, you know, are very tolerant. And I think this is nice. Notice, these same development, however, also held the danger of cheap commercialization. Goethe balked at this. He saw world literature as the province of the learned, not the rabble. Yes, in a way, yes. The learned, and I say learned, meaning the educated, the real intellectual, educated people, not anybody normal, and he used the word rabble. The word rabble means absolutely normal, even low normal people or society. In a way, maybe people will disagree with this, but no problem. Again, please don't leave. Join me back again when the time is up, because it'll stop in a minute. Join me please for 5-10 minutes. Okay, you are at home, you're not losing anything, because we will lose the connection in maybe few seconds. So the idea really here, he wants to say about